began 30 years ago in 1975. Fueled by the social turmoil of the late 60s and 70s, students from the Asian Law Students Association at the University of Santa Clara came together to form the Asian Law Alliance, otherwise known as the ALA. For the Japanese Americans, for example, our parents had just been released from internment camps. We grew up in the shadow of that, and while we believed in the American dream, we wondered, were we really Americans or not? You layer that with the African American civil rights movement, it really woke us up to the fact that we ought to address the problems of society as a whole, and Asian Americans in particular, in starting an organization similar to the Asian Law Caucus. These visionary law students really wanted to bring that model to Santa Clara County. We had the help of a lot of people, including Mike Honda, who's now a congressman. The Japanese American Citizens League donated office space in Japantown. Instead of going on to work at law firms where they could have earned a lot more money, they really dedicated themselves to a concept that they could make this a more just and equitable society. Through that experience, built, lifelong friendships, and in some cases, marriages. Silicon Valley was not a reality yet, and not ready for the changes that were about to happen. The end of the Vietnam War led to a flood of refugees, and the irony is that many of the immigrants faced hellish, war-torn passages to America from Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia, only to face the hellish conditions of poverty and inequality in America's inner cities. The Asian Law Alliance recognized that problem sooner than even the local officials. Among those founders were Steve Wing, Brad Yamauchi, Kathy Akau, Glenn Sugihara, Janice Doi, Steve Doi, Kelvin Gong, Joyce He, Gung Go, Joanne Hu, Jerry Mitsunaga, Min Do Van, Don Tamaki, Suzanne Atai, Hung Sung Park, Stan Yim, and of course, Richard Konda. If it was not for the dedication of Richard Konda, the Asian Law Alliance would not be what it is today. In the 1970s, the Asian American low-income population was stressed. The Asian Law Alliance had no shortage of legal cases. Lack of housing, being evicted, of people trying to get jobs and losing those jobs, criminal defense issues. People were being cut off of public benefits, which was critical. We were talking about actual survival. A lot of the stress manifested itself in domestic violence. And the Asian Law Alliance really representing the rights of that community. People needed help. We took on cases representing battered women, of persons denied disability, of those in need of criminal defense. This is the other side of the so-called model minority. Asian Americans have been saddled with a stereotype, and certainly they have achieved in education, but that does not tell the real story of Asian Americans. There's certainly another side. And even those Asian Americans that have been able to enter the mainstream, we found that the glass ceiling is real. The Asian Law Alliance has become, I think, a spokesperson to change policy. It looks for areas that it can make a difference, whether it's in housing, whether it is in police-community relations, and I think that's a way that it maximizes its impact. When Japanese Americans in the 1980s were part of a movement for redress and reparations for those who were incarcerated merely because they looked like the enemy, the Asian Law Alliance not only helped individual families who were interned seek justice, but also it was an important statement to be made that this ought never to happen to any other group again. Over the years, the Asian Law Alliance has been a strong advocate for immigrant rights. For example, it has joined other community organizations against the use of a Vietnamese mug book by the San Jose Police Department and has led the fight to put an end to this discriminatory practice. In the last decade, the Asian Law Alliance has continued to monitor police practices. It organized a vigil against the unlawful shootings of Bit Cao Tai Jung, a woman whose weapon turned out to be a Vietnamese vegetable peeler. It was also involved in calling attention to the mistaken shooting of Rudy Cardenas by the State Narcotics Agency. Asian and Pacific Islanders continue to face barriers to legal equality. In this regard, the ALA will continue to represent persons with limited English-speaking ability, who do not understand the legal system, who can't afford to pay legal fees, and who face the daily reality of discrimination. After 30 years, is there still a need for the Asian Law Alliance? Yes. Ask its clients. Ask the family wrongfully evicted from their housing. Ask the woman who has been battered by her husband. Ask the victim of a hate crime who was attacked merely because of his racial ancestry. In this regard, the ALA's doors have always been open to those with limited English-speaking skills, who do not understand the legal system, who can't afford legal fees, but yet who face the daily reality of discrimination or injustice. So what is our responsibility in all of this? We've got to redouble our efforts to promote policies and leadership that will make this a more just society. It is courage within our grasp. It is the courage of our ancestors who made America their home despite the adversity that they faced. It is the courage of the new immigrants who will be tomorrow's citizens. It is the courage of those of you who are here tonight who are committed to justice and equality. Won't you join us in the Asian Law Alliance in that fight?